Hare Krishna. Invocation prayers, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjalashalaakaya Satguru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhisyam Sthavinam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Dapadagabalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadgana Raghunathavidam Chajivam Sattvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagavuna Lalitam Sri Vishakam Vijamcha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpade Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpagaru Vishya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Pratitanam Papaneshu Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. So today we will start unit number 16. So there's Canto 4, Chapter 8 onwards to Chapter 12 is unit number 16. Unit 16 is titled Dhruv Maharaj. So you'll remember the conversation from Canto 3. That Canto 3, Chapter 29, verses 8, 9 and 10, we discuss devotional services in the modes of ignorance, passion and goodness. So Canto 4, the first 7 chapters, Unit 15, the Daksha Yajna section, is the example of devotional service in the mode of ignorance. And this Canto 4, chapters 8 to 12, Unit 16 on Dhruv Maharaj, is the example of devotional service in the mode of passion. You'll remember what you have on screen, the overview chart for Canto 4. So now highlighted in yellow is unit number 16 on Dhruv Maharaj, which is Canto 4, chapters 8 to 12. So Brahmaji's children are Swayambhuva Manu and his spouse Satrupa, and Swayambhuva Manu's son Uttanapada, who has 2 spouses, Suruchi and Suniti, and Dhruv Maharaj is the son of Suniti. As well as initially the first 5 verses also talks about the dynasty of Adharma. So we'll discuss as we go along. So Canto 4, chapters 8 to 12 is Unit 16, titled Dhruv Maharaj. Chapter 8 is titled Dhruv Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest, and is divided into 7 parts. Part 1 is verses 1 to 5, lineage of Adharma. Part 2 is verses 6 to 16. Suruchi chastises Dhruva and Dhruva's reaction. Part 3, verses 17 to 23. Suniti directs Dhruva to worship the Lord. Part 4, verses 24 to 34. Srila Narad Muni tests Dhruva's determination. Part 5, verses 35 to 62. Dhruva expresses his ambitious goal and Srila Narad Muni instructs him on the process to attain it. Part 6, verses 63 to 70. Srila Narad Muni meets and pacifies Uttanapada. Part 7, verses 71 to 82. Dhruva's severe austerities and their effects. Everybody got the parts?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So seems a lot of verses in one chapter. Actually, many verses are straightforward to set the scene and are without purports. The essential instruction from life of Dhruva is described in verse number 35, purport, as well as the verse that whether or not a person is afflicted by material desires, he is still fit to worship the Supreme Lord. As well as the other point, important point in this chapter is how to be free of envy. The solution is described in verse number 34, that upon meeting a more qualified person, one should rejoice and not be envy. And upon meeting a less qualified person, one should feel compassion and not look down on the less qualified. And upon meeting an equally qualified person, one should be friendly and not competitive. This way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of material world. So the chapter starts that while describing the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu's family, Maitreya Muni briefly describes the sons of Brahmaji. So verse 1 describes the many sons of Brahmaji. Is our dear Aditi able to read verse number 1 translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I will read on our behalf, Prabhu. Verse 1. The great sage Maitreya said, the four great Kumara sages headed by Sanaka as well as Narada, Ribu, Hamsa, Aruni and Yati, all sons of Brahma, did not live at home but became Urdhva Reta or Naishtika Brahmacharis, unadulterated celibates. Hare Krishna.
Straightforward verse that the sons of Brahma followed Urdhvareta or Naishtaki Brahmachari. The word Urdhvareta is described in the purport, which essentially is Naishtaki Brahmacharis. Shalini?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The previous point I just had a clarification. So when you're saying you gave about the different kinds, about whether you're equal or less or more. So when you say more qualified, this you mean materially, spiritually, everywhere, right, Prabhu?
Everywhere, correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And now verses 2 to 4 describe the impious lineage of Adharma. So I will have the slide on the screen to follow what the verse is describing from 2 to 4. You will see all this, what you have on screen, that from Brahmaji came Adharma, and then the spouse, and they all follow, the children and the children of the children, they all follow in this sequence. So it will make sense when we read the verses 2 to 4 translations. Shivangi, 2 to 4 translations.
One second, Guruji. Hare Krishna, text 2. Another son of Lord Brahma was irreligion, whose wife's name was falsity. From their combination were born two demons named Damba or bluffing and Maya or cheating. And these two demons were taken by a demon named Niti, who had no children. Maitreya told Vidura, O great soul, from Damba and Maya were born greed and Nikriti or cunning. From their combination came children named Krodha, anger, and Himsa, envy, and from their combination were born Kali and his sister Durukti, harsh speech. Text 4. O greatest of all good men, by the combination of Kali and harsh speech were born children Mrityu, death, Biti, fear. From the combination of Mrityu and Biti came children named Yatana, excessive pain, and Niraya, hell.
So straightforward verses, they just describe the lineage. Now, a question may come up that why are we reading about Adharma? And like what's the point of putting this Adharma lineage in Srimad Bhagavatam? And verse number 5 describes the Falashruti. That this description is actually purifying, because by hearing about the causes of destruction, one feels hatred for them and avoids them, and this way one advances on the path of piety. So we'll read verse number 5, translation and purport, where Prabhupada explains the same point. Shalini, 5, translation and purport.
Hare Krishna. Text 5. My dear Vidura, I have summarily explained the causes of devastation. One who hears this description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination from his soul. Purport. The creation takes place on the basis of goodness, but devastation takes place because of irreligion. That is the way of material creation and devastation. Here it is stated that the cause of devastation is adharma or irreligion. The descendants of irreligion and falsity, born one after another, are bluffing, cheating, greed, cunning, envy, anger, envy, quarrel, harsh speech, death, fear, severe pain, and hell. All these descendants are described as signs of devastation. If a person is pious and hears about these causes of devastation, he will feel hatred for all these, and that will cause his advancement in the life of piety. Piety refers to the process of cleansing the heart. As recommended by Lord Chaitanya, one has to cleanse the dust from the mirror of the mind, and then advancement on the path of liberation begins. Here also, the same process is recommended. Malam means contamination. We should learn to despise all the causes of devastation, beginning from irreligion and cheating, and then we will be able to make advancement in the life of piety. The possibility of our attaining Krishna consciousness will be easier, and we shall not be subjected to repeated devastation. The present life is repeated birth and death, but if we seek the path of liberation, we may be saved from repeated suffering. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations? So after
Why all the three were created by Brahma, Adharma?
repeat your question, please.
Why Adharma was created, Prabhuji?
So the material world is created to satisfy the desires of the soul, and material world is a place for punishment as well as is a hospital for reformation of the soul. So some souls have the desire for impious acts, and some souls have to be punished for their wrong acts. And therefore, we discussed this at the start of Canto 2, that as part of secondary creation, Brahmaji first had to create ignorance out of necessity, because unless the soul forgets about his real identity as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, till that time he cannot function in the material world. So it was necessity. And similarly, adharma is also a necessity for satisfying the desires of the soul as well as for the punishment of the soul. Uncle?
Thank you. Because Brahmaji is an exalted person. How he could create, now your explanation is clarifying the question. Even though he is exalted, it is based on the previous karma. One has to experience this. That is the reason it is created, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So now, after describing the impious descendants of adharma, Maitreya Muni is now very eager to describe the pious activities of Dhruv Maharaj, who is the most pious king. So because the incidents in the life of Dhruv Maharaj are very attractive to devotees. From Dhruva Maharaj's pious actions, one can learn how one can detach himself from material possessions and how one can enhance one's devotional service by severe austerities and penances. Now, this is also surprising that in previous Canto 3, Maitreya Muni first described about Devahuti, even though Devahuti is not the first daughter. Why Maitreya Muni described about Devahuti first is because Lord as Lord Kapila appeared from Devahuti. Therefore, Maitreya Muni first described about Devahuti and Lord Kapila. Similarly, between the two sons of Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata is the elder son and Uttanapada is the younger son. But Maitreya Muni immediately began to speak of Dhruva Maharaj, who is the son of Uttanapada, because Maitreya Muni was very eager to describe the pious activities of Dhruva Maharaj. So part 2 is verses 6 to 16. Suruchi chastises Dhruva and Dhruva's reaction. Shivangi?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I read somewhere that Uttanapada Maharaja is a representation or partial something expansion of the Lord. Is that true? I read it, I think, in this chapter.
Yeah, it's coming up in this chapter. You're correct. It's coming
But
up.
then, if that's the case, then why did he do that to Dhruva Maharaj? Why didn't he show more affection to one son and the other wife, and then neglect his other son?
Yeah, it's all coming up. It's understand that the examples in Srimad Bhagavatam are extreme examples so that we don't forget and we follow. I mean, you're talking about Uttanapada. Down the line in this lineage of all the descendants, there's actually a son of Krishna directly from Mother Earth, and he goes on to become a demon. How is that possible? Son of Supreme Personality of Godhead goes on to become a demon, and that Krishna has to actually go and kill him because he's such a demon. So these are all extreme examples. So the example about one of the son of Krishna becoming demon is to prove the point of association. That association is so important that even son of Krishna goes on to become a demon that Krishna then has to go and kill him. So all these points, I mean, forget Uttanapada alone. We all are parts and parcels of Krishna. But I am doing some impious things. Right? So it's not only Uttanapada. This is all extreme examples for us to learn and rectify ourselves. Shivangi?
Okay, Prabhuji. I'll think about it.
All right. Very good. So part 2 is verses 6 to 16. Suruchi chastises Dhruva and Dhruva's reaction. Mother Jija, verse 6, 7, and 8 translations.
Text 6. Translation. Maitreya continued, O best of the Kuru dynasty, I shall now describe before you the descendants of Swayambhava Manu, who was born of a part of a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 7. Swayambhava Manu had two sons by his wife Satarupa, and the names of the sons were Uttanapada and Priyavrata. Because both of them were descendants of the plenary expansion of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were very competent to rule the universe, to maintain and protect the citizen. Text 8. King Uttanapada had two queens named Sunati and Suruchi. Suruchi was much more dear to the king. Suniti, who had a son named Dhruva, was not his favorite. Hare Krishna.
So in verse number 8 purport, Prabhupada explains reasons for Maitreya Muni's eagerness to describe the life of Dhruva Maharaj. Jija, 8 purport.
Text 8 purport. The great sage Maitreya wanted to describe the pious activities of the kings. Priyavrata was the first son of Swayambhava Munu and Uttanapada was the second. But the great sage Maitreya immediately began to speak of Dhruva Maharaj, the son of Uttanapada, because Maitreya was very eager to describe pious activities. The incidents in the life of Dhruva Maharaj are very attractive for devotees. From his pious actions, one can learn how one can detach himself from material possessions and how one can enhance one's devotional service by severe austerities and penances. By hearing the activities of pious Dhruva, one can enhance one's faith in God and can directly connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus one can very soon be elevated to the transcendental platform of devotional service. The example of Dhruva Maharaj's austerities can immediately generate a feeling of devotional service in the hearts of the hearers. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations? In the next few verses, Suruchi's envy and pride becomes evident. Suruchi says that Dhruva's desire to sit on the lap of his father Uttanapada is impossible to fulfill, and Suruchi indirectly tells Dhruva to die first and take birth again from Suruchi to get onto the lap of the father Uttanapada. Gopal Prabhu, verses 9 to 13, translations and purports.
Hare Krishna. Text 9 translation. Once upon a time, King Uttanapada was putting the son of Sruchi, Uttama, placing him on his lap. Dhruva Maharaja was also trying to get on the king's lap, but the king did not very much welcome him. Text 10 translation. While the child Dhruva Maharaj was trying to get on the lap of his father, Sruchi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride, she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself. Purport. The king, of course, was equally affectionate toward both his sons, Uttama and Dhruva, so he had a natural inclination to take Dhruva as well as Uttama on his lap. But because of his favoritism towards the queen Sruchi, he could not welcome Dhruva Maharaja despite his feelings. King Uttanapada's feeling was understood by Sruchi, and therefore, with great pride, she began to speak about the king's affection for her. This is the nature of woman. If a woman understands that her husband regards her as a favorite and is especially affectionate to her, she takes undue advantage. These symptoms were visible even in such an elevated society as the family of Swambhu Manu. Therefore, it is concluded that the feminine nature of woman is present everywhere. Text 11 translation. Queen Suruchi told Dhruva Maharaja, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth from my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap." Queen Suruchi purport. Queen Suruchi very proudly informed Dhruva Maharaja that to be the king's son was not the qualification for sitting on the lap or throne of the king. Rather, this privilege was dependent on one's having taken birth from her womb. In other words, she indirectly informed Dhruva Maharaja that although he happened to be born of the king, he was considered an illegitimate son because of his birth from the womb of the other queen. Text 12 translation. My dear child, you are unaware that you were born not of my womb, but of another woman. Therefore, you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You are trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to fulfill. Purport. The small child Dhruva Maharaja was naturally affectionate toward his father and did not know that there was a distinction between his two mothers. This distinction was pointed out by Queen Suruchi, who informed him that since he was a child, he did not understand the distinction between the two queens. There is another statement of Queen Suruchi's pride. Text 13 translation. If you at all desire to rise the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, and then when you are favored by him because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb. Suruchi was so envious of Dhruva Maharaja that she indirectly asked him to change his body. According to her, first of all, he had to die, then take his next body in her womb, and only then would it be possible for Dhruva Maharaja to ascend the throne of his father. Hare Krishna.
You can see the degree of pride that Suruchi is talking to a small child, and look how she's talking, that she is everything and everybody else is nothing. And even as a child, because of his passionate Kshatriya nature, Dhruva becomes angry. And his mother, Suniti, does not know the solution. So I described at the start that this Dhruva Maharaj's set of chapters is on passion. Okay, you'll soon visualize, as well as the other point is about pride and envy is also very evident from the verses we read about Suruchi. So now we'll read 14 to 16 translations and purports about Dhruva Maharaj's passionate reaction. Uncle will read 14 to 16 translations and purports.
Hare Krishna. Verse 14, translation. The sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, as a snake, when struck by a stick, breathes very heavily, Dhruva Maharaja, having been struck by the strong words of his stepmother, began to breathe very heavily because of great anger. When he saw that his father was silent and did not protest, he immediately left the place and went to his mother." Text 15. Translation. When Dhruva Maharaj reached his mother, his lips were trembling in anger and he was crying very grievously. Queen Suniti immediately lifted her son onto her lap, while the palace residents who had heard all the harsh words of Suruchi related everything in detail. Thus Suruchi also became greatly aggrieved. Text 16. Translation. This incident was unbearable to Suniti's patience. She began to burn as if in a forest of fire, and in her grief she became just like a burnt leaf and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright, lotus-like face filled with tears, and thus she spoke. Hare Krishna.
Purport 16.
Purport. When the man is aggrieved, he feels exactly like a burnt leaf in the forest of fire. Suniti's position was like that, although her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower. It dried up because of the burning fire caused by the harsh words of her co-wife. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realization so far?
Prabhuji, why Dhruva Maharaj's father was partial in nature, neglecting Dhruva Maharaj because Suniti's son, and favored the second wife, our co-wife, son.
Yeah.
What is the reason?
It's the same point of attachment that Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana have. The same attachment is here for Uttanapada for his first wife Suruchi. And in the chapter we'll read in this whole set of verses and the set of chapters that Uttanapada will actually regret his decision, that he did not favor Dhruva equally to Suruchi's son Uttama. He is going to actually regret, and when he realizes his mistake, he's going to put Dhruva Maharaj on the throne as the king, and he is going to retire. So it's about attachment, and this is an important learning that we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita at the very start. That attachment makes the powerful powerless. He's a king here, exactly like Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra also king, but because of his attachment, he could not do anything. And exactly same attachment, Uttanapada is also not able to do anything. Uncle?
Got it.
So part 3 is verses 17 to 23. Suniti directs Dhruva to worship the Lord. Now Suniti is also angry. Still, Suniti advises Dhruva to not wish ill fortune for others. This is important learning. And we'll realize down the line that how Dhruva's mother Suniti also attains liberation. So we have to have these qualities. We can't just be liberated just like that. So Suniti advises to Dhruva, do not wish ill fortune for others. Suniti does not know the solution. Therefore, Suniti advises Dhruva to worship Lord's lotus feet, just as Dhruva's great-grandfather Brahmaji did and Dhruva's grandfather Swayambhuva Manu did. Mother Chandra Aunty, 17 to 20 translations and purport. Unmute.
Sorry. Hare Krishna. She also was breathing very heavily and she did not know the actual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, my dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pains upon others, suffers himself from that pain. Text 80. Sunti said, my dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore, it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up. Text 90. My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your step brother, Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instruction of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 20.
Purport also, 19 purport.
Purport. The harsh words used by Sriti to her stepson were true because unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve any success in life. Man proposes and God disposes. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, agreed with her co-wife's advice that Dhruva engage himself in the worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indirectly, the word of Suriti were a benediction for Dhruva Maharaj, for because of the influence of his stepmother's word, he became a great devotee. Text 20. Suriti continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshipping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and he is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air, prana. Purport also, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Purport. Sriti cited the example of Lord Brahma, who was Dhruva Maharaj's great grandfather. Although Lord Brahma is also a living being, by his penance and austerity, he acquired the exalted position of creator of this universe by the mercy of Supreme Lord. To become successful in any attempt, one not only has to undergo severe penance and austerity, but also must be dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This indication had been given to Dhruva Maharaj by his stepmother and was now confirmed by his own mother, Sinti. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realization so far?
Adversity became opportunity for Dhruva Maharaj for realization of devotional service.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Exactly what was the situation for Parikshit Maharaj also, that Parikshit Maharaj was put in this seemingly awkward position, first to become thirsty, etc. So that Srimad Bhagavatam can come to the world, as well as Parikshit Maharaj also attained liberation because of that.
Another thing I realized, Prabhuji, Suniti is also a beautiful example of directing her son, even though he is a small child, owning the responsibility on her and therefore convincing her son to go to for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God. That is my realization.
Yeah, you are correct. So Suniti is definitely the positive example. So we discussed at the start of Canto 4 overview that there are many examples of positive and negative, as well as there are many examples of Vaishnavis. And Suniti is definitely the positive Vaishnavi example, which will come up in this unit 16 down the line.
And the Prabhu, even though stepmother, she advised him to do the austerity for Lord. In a way, she is directed in a proper way even.
Yeah, so we read this in the purport that although Suruchi's intent was envious, the words actually became benediction, what uncle just described. And therefore Suniti says the words are correct, go and worship the Lord. And that essentially is a key point from the life of Dhruv Maharaj, that even if you have desires, material desires, you are still qualified to worship the Lord. All right. So verse 21 describes the term ekamatya, means to concentrate the mind on the Lord without deviation. Chandran Prabhu, not sure if you are able to read 21 translation and purport.
Yes, Prabhuji, I can do that.
Very good.
Hare Krishna. Text 21. Translation. Suniti informed her son, your grandfather Swayambhuva Manu executed great sacrifices with distribution of charity, and thereby with unflinching faith and devotion, he worshipped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By acting in that way, he achieved the greatest success in material happiness and afterwards achieved liberation, which is impossible to obtain by worshipping the demigods. Purport. The success of one's life is measured by one's material happiness in this life and liberation in the next. Such success can be achieved only by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Eka Matya means concentrating one's mind on the Lord without deviation. This process of undeviating worship of the Supreme Lord is also expressed in Bhagavad Gita as Ananya Bhakt. That which is impossible to obtain from any other source is also mentioned here. Other source refers to worship of the demigods. It is especially stressed here that the opulence of Manu was due to his undeviating faithfulness in the transcendental service of the Lord. One who diverts his mind to worshipping many demigods to obtain material happiness is considered bereft of intelligence. If anyone wants even material happiness, he can worship the Supreme Lord without deviation. And persons who are desirous of liberation can also worship the Supreme Lord and achieve their goal of life. Hare Krishna.
Right, so explains about ekamatya, means to concentrate the mind on the Lord without deviation. And whether you have desires or whether you want liberation, everyone is qualified to worship the Supreme Lord. So in the purport we read that the same point is explained in Bhagavad Gita as Ananya Bhak. Anybody remembers what Bhagavad Gita verse is this? Or would you like to take this as your homework to find this verse in Bhagavad Gita? All right, so take that as your additional homework to find what this verse is where it talks about Ananya Bhakt and explain what that verse is talking about. So now, Lord as Bhaktavatsal is described, and that even a child like Dhruva can be purified by bhakti yoga. But for a child, karma kanda or karma yoga are difficult to follow. But bhakti yoga is possible even for a child. Because karma kanda is essentially demigod worship, and demigod worship is difficult for a child. But bhakti yoga, even a child can do, and we have discussed this in Parikshit Maharaj's birth and activities, that Parikshit Maharaj was doing chanting in the womb. And Prabhupada explains that one can worship the Lord without any paraphernalia, even in the womb of a mother. Kalyani 22 translation purport and then 23 translation. Oh, Srila Prabhu is disconnected. Shivangi 22 translation purport and then 23 translation. Shalini 22 translation purport, 23 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 22, translation. My dear boy, you should also take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. The person seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Purport. The system of Bhakti Yoga, described by Queen Suniti to her son, is the standard way of God realization. Everyone can continue his constitutional occupational duties and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. This was also instructed by the Lord himself to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Go on fighting, but keep me within your mind. That should be the motto of every honest person seeking perfection in Krishna consciousness. In this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhratya Vatsala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, "You came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee." Queen Suniti also stressed that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not easy, but is sought after by great sages who are very advanced in spiritual realization. Queen Suniti also indicated by her instruction that Dhruv Maharaj was only a small child, 5-year-old, and it was not possible for him to purify himself by the way of Karma Kanda. But by the process of Bhakti Yoga, even a child less than 5-year-old or anyone of any age can be purified. That is the special significance of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, she advised him not to accept worship of demigods or any other process, but simply to take the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result would be all perfection. As soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. Text 23, translation. My dear Dhruva, as far as I am concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the goddess of fortune, but the goddess of fortune herself, with the lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations that Bhakti Yoga is possible in all circumstances and even for a child. while other processes such as karma yoga and karma kanda definitely was not possible for child like Dhruva. Questions, comments? So part 4 is verses 24 to 34. Srila Narad Muni tests Dhruva's determination. Srila Narad Muni, as spiritual master of Dhruva, first tests Dhruva, whether Dhruva is ready for initiation. So all spiritual master will test their disciples. And my spiritual master, His Grace Vaishyadas Adhikari, also tested me before initiation whether I was ready for initiation or not. Now, this test by spiritual master is not to fail the disciple, but is just to see the seriousness of the disciple. And I'll tell you, when my spiritual master was testing me, he was actually chuckling. And he also indirectly gave the answer to the question he was asking me. And my spiritual master chucklingly says, I am asking you this question, try to not fail, although he was giving me the answer also. But he was just trying to test me whether I am serious for initiation or not. So Dhruv Maharaj leaves home in anger due to his Kshatriya nature, and Sri Narad Muni, as spiritual master, arrives there. Now, question may come up that how did Sri Narad Muni know about Dhruva? And the answer is, which we'll soon read in the verses up, that Sri Narad Muni is Trikal Gya, means Sri Narad Muni knows everyone's heart plus the Paramatma within everyone. So the Paramatma sends his representative, the spiritual master. When Paramatma sees from within that the devotee is ready for initiation. Gopal Prabhu, 24 translation and then 25 translation purport as well as 26 translation purport. Gopal Prabhu, unmute.
Sorry. Hare Krishna. Text 24 translation. The great sage Maitreya continued. The instruction of Dhruva Maharaj's mother Suniti was actually meant for fulfilling his desired objective. Therefore, after deliberate consideration and with intelligence and fixed determination, he left his father's house. Text 25 translation. The great sage Narada overheard this news, and understanding all the activities of Dhruva Maharaja, he was struck with wonder. He approached Dhruva and touching the boy's head with his all-virtuous hand, he spoke as follows. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaja was talking with his mother Suniti of all the incidents that had taken place in the palace, Narada was not present. Thus the question may be raised how Narada overheard all these topics. The answer is that Narada is Triloka Jnana. He is so powerful that he can understand the past, future, and present of everyone's heart, just like the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, after understanding the strong determination of Dhruva Maharaja, Narada came to help him. It may be explained in this way. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, and as soon as he understands that the living entity is serious about entering devotion service, he sends his representative. In this way, Narada was sent to Dhruva Maharaja. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. By the grace of the spiritual master of Krishna, one can enter into the devotional service. Because of Dhruva Maharaja's determination, Krishna, the super soul, immediately sent his representative Narada to initiate him. Text 26 translation. How wonderful are the powerful Kshatriyas! They cannot tolerate even a slight infringement upon their prestige. Just imagine, this boy is only a small child, yet harsh words from his stepmother proved unbearable to him. Purport. The qualifications of the Kshatriyas are described in Bhagavad Gita. Two important qualifications are to have a sense of prestige and not to flee from battle. It appears that the Kshatriya blood within the body of Dhruva Maharaja was naturally very active. If the Brahminical, Kshatriya, or Vaishya culture is maintained in a family, naturally the sons and grandsons inherit the spirit of the particular class. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, the samskara or a reformatory system is maintained very rigidly. If one fails to observe the reformatory measure current in the family, one is immediately degraded to a lower standard of life. Hare Krishna.
So we read that how Narad Muni is Trikalgya. He knows everything, past, present, and future of everyone's heart. And Krishna sends as representative the spiritual master when Paramatma sees the devotee is ready for initiation, as well as the Kshatriya nature of Dhruva Maharaj, that this whole unit is in the mode of passion, that a 5-year-old boy and his anger and his Kshatriya nature is very evident. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I just had a doubt in this purport. Can I just read where I have a doubt, Prabhu?
Yep.
If the Brahminical, Kshatriya, Vaishya culture is maintained in a family, naturally the sons and grandsons inherit the spirit of a particular class. Therefore, according to Vedic system, the samskara or reformatory system is maintained very rigidly. If one fails to observe the reformatory measures current in the family, one is immediately degraded to a lower standard of life. Prabhu, is it relevant for us? Because all of us are supposed to be Shudras, no, Prabhu? Not in any particular order.
So, unless you know otherwise, you are Shudra. Yeah, Kshatriyas are a little difficult to know. I mean, the leaders are definitely having Kshatriya quality. So, Vaishya are definitely there who are running the business and the mercantile and maintaining the cows, etc. And Brahminical is also there. If you qualify yourself by second initiation, you are a Brahmana. So if you maintain, say, the Brahminical culture in your family, the children will follow the same. And if the children are not following, well, then immediately they are downgraded to lower standard of life. Then therefore the children are then known as Brahma Bandhu and not Brahmana. So samskars you can follow, you can maintain. Don't just say you are Shudra. Yes, by default, yes, we are born as Shudra. That's understandable. But you can qualify, elevate yourself to Brahminical standard. Shalini?
Yes, Prabhu, I understood. So this is not about where one is taking birth as per whatever we are. It's the Brahminical system as per second initiation of ISKCON or any other sampradaya. Right, Prabhu? That's what you mean.
Yeah, not any other sampradaya, ISKCON.
Okay.
All right. So Srila Narad Muni now says to Dhruva Maharaj to not be affected by honor and dishonor. And Srila Narad Muni says that if you are able to understand the honor and dishonor, well, then you should also know that honor and dishonor are destined by one's karma. Mother Jija, 27, 28, 29 translations and purports.
Text 27. Translation. The great sage Narada told Dhruva, "My dear boy, you are only a little boy whose attachment is to sports and other frivolities. Why are you so affected by words insulting your honor? Text 28. My
Purports
dear
also.
Dhruva,
Purports also.
ordinarily, if a child is rebuked as a rascal or fool, he smiles and does not take insulting words very seriously. Similarly, if words of honor are offered, he does not appreciate them. But in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, the Kshatriya spirit was so strong that he could not tolerate a slight insult from his stepmother, which injured his Kshatriya prestige. Text 28 translation. My dear Dhruva, if you feel that your sense of honor has been insulted, you still have no cause for dissatisfaction. This kind of dissatisfaction is another feature of the illusionary energy. Every living entity is controlled by his previous actions, and therefore there are different varieties of life for enjoying or suffering. Text.
Purports.
Purport. In the Vedas, it is said that the living entity is always uncontaminated and unaffected by material association. The living entity gets different types of material bodies because of his previous fruitive actions. If, however, one understands the philosophy that as a living spirit, soul, he has an affinity for neither suffering nor enjoyment, then he is considered to be a liberated person. If it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.54, Brahma Bhutas Prasanatma Ma. When one is actually situated on the transcendental platform, he has nothing for which to lament or nothing for which to hanker. Narada Rishi first of all wanted to impress upon Dhruva Maharaj that he was only a child. He should not have been affected by words of insult or honor. And if he were so developed as to understand honor and insult, then this understanding should have been applied in his own life. He should have known that honor and dishonor are both destined only by one's previous actions. Therefore, one should not be sorry or happy under any circumstances. Text 29 translation. The process of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very wonderful. One who is intelligent should accept that process and be satisfied with whatever comes, favorable or unfavorable, by his supreme will. Purport. The great sage Narada instructed Dhruva Maharaj that one should be satisfied in all circumstances. Everyone who is intelligent should know that because of our concept of bodily existence, we are subjected to suffering and enjoyment. One who is in the transcendental position beyond the concept of bodily life is considered to be intelligent. One who is a devotee especially accepts all reverses as gifts of the Supreme Lord. When a devotee is put into distress, he accepts this as God's mercy and offers him repeated obeisances with his body, mind, and intellect. An intelligent person, therefore, should be always satisfied depending on the mercy of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Right, so Narad Muni says that first you are a child. You don't have to be affected by honor and dishonor. And if you think you can see honor and dishonor, well, then you should also know that honor and dishonor are destined by karma. Now, even when Srila Narad Muni has come to Dhruva on the instruction of Supreme Lord, still Srila Narad Muni will state to Dhruva Maharaj that The path of devotional service is very difficult. Therefore, Dhruva should go home and he should come back to devotional service when he's grown up. And all this is just to test Dhruva. Uncle, 30, 31, 32 translation and purports.
Hare Krishna. 30 translation. Now you have decided to undertake the mystic process of meditation under the instruction of your mother, just to achieve the mercy of the Lord. Sorry. But in my opinion, such austerities are not possible for any ordinary man. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The process of Bhakti Yoga is simultaneously very difficult and very easy to perform. Sri Narada Muni, the Supreme Spiritual Master, is testing Dhruva Maharaja to see how determined he is to prosecute devotional service. This is the process of accepting a disciple. The great sage Narada has come to Dhruva under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to initiate him. Yet he is testing Dhruva's determination to execute the process. It is a fact, however, that for a sincere person, devotional service is very easy. But for one who is not determined and sincere, this process is very difficult. Text 31. Translation. Narada Muni continued, after trying this process for many births and remaining unattached to material contamination, placing themselves continuously in trance and executing many types of austerities. Many mystic yogis were unable to find the end of the path of God realization. Text 32. For this translation, for this reason, my dear boy, you should not endeavor for this. It will not be successful. It is better that you go home. When you are grown up, by the mercy of the Lord, you will get a chance for these mystic performances. At the time, you may execute this function. Purport. Generally, a thoroughly trained person takes us to spiritual perfection at the end of his life. According to Vedic system, therefore, life is divided into 4 stages. In the beginning, one becomes a brahmachari, a student who studies Vedic knowledge and under the authoritative guidance of a spiritual master. He then becomes a householder and executes household duties according to the Vedic processes. Then the householder becomes vanaprastha, and gradually, when he is mature, he renounces household life and vanaprastha life also and takes to sannyasa, completely devoting himself to devotional service. Generally, people think that childhood is meant for enjoying life by engaging oneself in sports and play. Youth is meant for enjoying the company of young girls. And when one becomes old at the time of death, then he may try to execute devotional service or mystic yoga processes. But this conclusion is not for devotees who are actually serious. The great sage Narada is instructing Dhruva Maharaja just to test him. Actually, the direct order is that from any point of life, one should begin rendering devotional service. But it is the duty of the spiritual master to test the disciple to see how seriously he desires to execute devotional service. Then he may be initiated.
Right, so the direct order is that from any point of life, one should begin rendering devotional service. But Narada Muni, a spiritual master, is testing Dhruva Maharaj and he's telling Dhruva, go home, you are just a child. You can follow this process later on in your life because this is a difficult process. Questions, comments, realizations?
In fact, according to the realization, Prabhuji, even though it is a testing thing, many occasions people discourage to find out determination. In fact, to cite an example, my sister, when I went for admission in medical college, the dean told, come tomorrow, but today, brief the advantages and disadvantages of this medical life, and then come back. So this is a classical example. It happens in life also.
All right, very good. So, next 2 points are important learnings. First is, just as Bhagavad Gita 8.7 and Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8 are important verses on how to live in this material world. Similarly, verse number 34 is important verse on how to live in the material world without envy of others. That upon meeting a more qualified person, one should rejoice and not be envy. Upon meeting a less qualified person, one should feel compassion and not look down on the less qualified. And upon meeting an equally qualified person, one should be friendly and not competitive. This way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of material world. Shivangi, are you now able to read 33, 34 translations and purports?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, text 34 translation.
33 and 34.
Hare Krishna, text 33 translation. One should try to keep himself satisfied in any condition of life, whether distress or happiness, which is offered by the Supreme Will. The person who endures in this way is able to cross over the darkness of nescience very easily. Purport. Material existence consists of pious and impious fruitive activities. As long as one is engaged in any kind of activity other than devotional service, it will result in the happiness and distress of this material world. When we enjoy life in so-called material happiness, it is to be understood that we are diminishing the resultant actions of our pious activities. And when we are put into suffering, it is to be understood that we are diminishing the resultant actions of our impious activities. Instead of being attached to the circumstantial happiness and distress resulting from pious or impious activities, if we want to get out of the clutches of this nescience, then whatever position we are put in by the will of the Lord, we should accept. Thus, if we simply surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we shall get out of the clutches of this material existence. Text 34, translation. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Purport. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. Text 35, translation.
Hold on. So, very practical verse number 34 purport. I don't know about you, that when you read that I can see myself that when I find someone more qualified, I become envious. When I find someone less qualified, I deride him. And when I find someone equal, I become proud. So these are the imperfections that I have. How we are supposed to live is we have to develop this quality. that when we meet a more qualified person, we should rejoice and welcome him, not be envy. On meeting a less qualified, we should feel compassion and not look down upon the less qualified. And upon meeting an equally qualified person, we should make friends with him and not be competitive. Then there will be no more threefold miseries of the material world. Questions, comments, realizations, everybody on the practical verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is again reinforcing that the humility, tolerance is so important. We should be like the blade of grass, Prabhu. Then we won't be affected by anything.
Very good. Correct point. Rest of you?
This is a great lesson to, one always wonders how does one get out of the clutches in the practical world. This one at least consciously, if we, one way of starting point for us.
Yeah, exactly. So be conscious that next time from this point on, when you see somebody more qualified and your by default nature gets activated, pause. Think of 4.8.34 that no, I have to rejoice, not be envy. Very good. Uncle?
Prabhuji, I feel due to short span of life left with, I wish I had read this 1 to 34 up to now. The realization is such it is day-to-day life, and I would have been a more civilized and a better realized person had I read this earlier, because I had plentiful opportunities earlier to practice all those three qualities. But anyhow, let it be let than ever. I don't regret, but I have realized. Thank you.
Yeah, so don't deride yourself. We are here to purify on a go-forward basis and go back home to Godhead by purifying ourselves. All of us have done mistakes. I have done mistakes. So when you get these realizations, that's when you get the impetus to purify yourself. So thank you for listening with rapt attention. Otherwise, it would have been something what you have heard and went from one ear to the other. It's only when you get this realization is when you will transform. So we are here to transform, not to worry about what we have done in the past. Yes, we have done mistakes, no denying. It's a matter of transforming on a go-forward basis, no matter how much time is left. We have no control on our life. We have discussed at great length that we can, all of us can be evicted from this body at any point of time. We don't know. We just have to use the available facility. We have to make the best use of the worst bargain of this human form of life and just transform as much as is possible without worrying of the past. Uncle?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Gopal Prabhu?
My realization is, Prabhu, it's all when God sanctions, He sanctions when we have to keep that intent and...
Correct.
For example, in our own life, I will say, people migrate from India to developed countries like here with materialistic ambitions. People who come here, people who drink, they get variety of things which you don't get in India. You go to variety of places, you get to live more materially in advancement. But God has been so kind to us that I don't think this Krishna consciousness, I had several opportunities. I used to go to ISKCON so frequently during my bachelorhood. Somewhere that got disconnected in Mumbai's, India's hustle bustle life. When we came here, God sanctioned us. We got so much involved here now.
Yeah,
it's like we have come here not for material advancement is secondary. We are not even caring about it. I think we are so much involved in this now. Fully, trying to see how we can improve here.
Yeah, very good. Correct point. Yeah, it is easier to follow spirituality a little bit in the Western world than as compared to India. Yeah, India is running hustle 24 hours and at great pace. So it becomes very difficult because you get caught in the whirlpool. And just in the last few days, my spiritual master, His Grace Vaishyadas Adhikari, gave a lecture on this same topic, how to be non-envious. Although the lecture was not on this verse, but essential message was identical. So if anybody is interested on hearing my spiritual master's lecture, you can let me know and I can forward that to you.
That will be very good, Prabhu. It will be excellent.
Yes, Prabhu, please send to me.
Please,
We
please.
are
All right.
Please send
Me
to us
too,
also, Prabhu.
All right.
Please send to me also, Prabhu.
Okay, I will send to all of you. Okay. So I wanted to cover the next verse number 35, but we are just running out of time. So we will cover the verse number 35 in our following class. It's an important verse also, which essentially talks about the essential instruction from the life of Dhruv Maharaj, that whether or not a person is afflicted by material desires, he is still fit to worship the Supreme Lord. So it's an important discussion we'll cover in our next class. Let me give you homework questions. So you already got 1 point from the discussions about Ananya Bhag. Find the verse from Bhagavad Gita and then describe the essence of that verse. So question number 1. Give reasons why Maitreya Muni wanted to relate the activities of Dhruv Maharaj. Comes from verse number 8. Number 2. What do the words Ekamatya signify? Comes from verse number 21. Number 3. Relate Srila Narad Muni's first advice through Dhruva. Why did Srila Narad Muni advise Dhruva in this way? Comes from verse number 32. Number 4. What is Srila Narad Muni's formula for being aloof from miseries of this world? Comes from verse number 34. And number 5, for next class, read Canto 4, Chapter 8, rest of the chapter if you have not already read. And Shalini?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, the question number 1, which is the verse, Prabhu, the answer?
Question number 1, give reasons why Maitreya wanted to relate activities of Dhruv Maharaj, is verse number 8.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
And the verses that we read towards the end and the conversation Gopal Krishna Prabhu was having is also the answer to Shivangi's earlier question, that how come Uttanapada treated Dhruva like this is because of God's mercy and God's sanction also. Shivangi, additional point?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shalini?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted to...
Prabhuji, would you please
Shalini first, go ahead.
read question number 3, please?
Yeah. Shalini?
Prabhu, I can, it's just another thing. You can go ahead with Partha Prabhu's, then I'll say Prabhu.
Okay. Question number 3 is relate Srila Narada Muni's first advice to Dhruva. Why did Srila Narada Muni advise Dhruva in this way. Comes
Thank
from
you.
verse number 32.
Got it.
Shalini.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. No, I just wanted to share, Prabhu, that by Krishna's mercy, I could attend a lecture in Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir in ISKCON Chowpatty, Prabhu. It was Chaitanya Charandas Prabhu who had given a lecture on your story in Krishna's story. So this is from one of the books which we had received when he had come to Toronto. So he was explaining one of the prayers from Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu. Just wanted to share that.
Very good. Did you go speak to him?
Yes, Prabhu. He could remember because I told him from Toronto. He could remember because when I met him in Toronto, I had told him that I'll be coming to Mumbai. So he's asked me to come for the lecture, Prabhu.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing. All right, we are just past 9:15 a.m. Toronto time. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank